Welcome to Beyond BIM. Today's episode is with Dr. Javier Irizarry, an associate professor at the School of Building Construction at the Georgia Institute of Technology. A pioneer in unmanned aerial systems or drone technology, applications in the built environment, and also the co-author of the book titled Construction 4.0. In today's discussion, he talks to me about the Construction 4.0 framework and the future use of UAVs under this framework for the construction industry. But he does not merely write about UAVs, he is even a licensed drone pilot himself. Presently, Javier is the director of the CONECTech Lab, which aims to establish the framework for developing the next generation technology for construction problems. Javier's research focuses on construction information technologies, which include virtual and augmented reality, human-computer interaction issues, reality capture technologies, situation awareness-driven information systems, and last but not least, unmanned aerial vehicles. And now, let's take a look at what Javier has to say about the use of UAVs according to the Construction 4.0 vision.
My interest in engineering and construction started way back in high school. I remember I took a architectural design class where we had to design and build houses. So that was before CAD existed. So I felt like we were learning a craft. We had to do all the hand sketching and drafting and working with models made out of wood. So that was very interesting to me. And then I studied civil engineering, and I really liked the technical aspects of the construction side of civil engineering, to the point where my first construction project actually was during my second year of engineering school, where I designed a very small concession stand. It was pretty much a concrete box for my aunt's neighborhood's recreation facilities. So it was a really cool opportunity that my aunt gave me to design that for them, and that made me realize that sometimes when you work with family, those could be the most challenging clients or customers. So that was an early start, I guess, in design and construction. And then when I finished my undergraduate degree at the University of Puerto Rico, I had the chance to join a U.S.-based company. At that time, they were in the pre-construction stages of the Tren Urbano, which was at that time Puerto Rico's first mass transit system. So I worked for them for a few years, and then I worked for one of the contractors that was building the system. And in addition to working on the metro, I started working on all the other type of projects that they had. And my role was construction planner and scheduler. So I got to start early on in my career working with construction management technology. And then a few years after that, then I went to Purdue to pursue my doctorate in construction engineering and management, where I specialized in construction safety. And then after that, I joined my first academic appointment at Southern Polytechnic State University in Georgia in 2005. And that's where I engaged with research and teaching, leveraging many different technologies. I developed courses that included construction management software, like scheduling software, and in the early stages of BIM, the early days of BIM, that was in the classes that I developed. And I even developed a technology similar to what you're using now. I worked on using it, didn't develop it, but we use podcasts to share class materials, which would come in very handy in the moments that we're in right now. We have many other tools that we can use, but I was using podcasts back then, and started some of the earlier research that I can remember on human-computer interaction for construction applications. So we were back then we were using touch sensitive screens to see how students could manipulate things like building information models with touch screens. So that was even before we had ubiquitous mobile devices with touch sensitive capabilities like iPhones or iPads. We were doing it in basically rear projection monitors in classrooms. And then in 2008, I joined Georgia Tech and continued my research on technology applications for the construction and the built environment, which included early versions of augmented reality that now are more commonplace, virtual reality and drones, which has been a great part of the research that I've done since then till now.
And your most recent work is within the new book titled Construction 4.0. And there you extensively discuss Construction 4.0. So how different is this from Industry 4.0? And can you explain the difference between the two concepts?
So Industry 4.0 is a paradigm where the manufacturing sector benefits from the integration of many technologies, such as cyber-physical systems, networked and embedded systems, IoT, that provide great benefit to that process in multiple dimensions like productivity, safety, quality, sustainability, makes the processes faster and more flexible. So in Construction 4.0, what we thought about was to propose this framework that leverages concepts from Industry 4.0, but is centered on the digitalization or digitization of the construction industry in particular. So it's centered around a common data environment, and BIM in particular is at the center of this environment. So the many technologies that are emerging, that are established, and everywhere in between, contribute to this framework with the creation of data, the manipulation of data, and the implementation of this data, all in this common framework of application.
So what was the original incentive then to write that book? I mean, why now? Why is it particularly the time for us to be discussing Construction 4.0?
So it was about a year and a half ago that Anil Swaini, he was at John Moores Liverpool University, and Mike Riley, who's still there. We had a conversation about all these technologies and how they contribute to construction. I visited them at that time and gave a short talk on what we were doing with unmanned systems, with drones for construction applications. And I think that conversation spawned the ideas of working on this, which Anil already was thinking about. But I think when he joined RICS, the Royal Institute of Chartered Surveyors, as the director for the infrastructure sector, I think that was, I believe it was an important motivation, since the book that compiles all this knowledge could reach many in the industry that could benefit from it. That's one of the goals of the book is to be able to promote this idea of the unification of all these technologies under a Construction 4.0 framework that is easy to understand and hopefully easy to apply in the industry. The opportunity to collaborate in the book was very timely, and I saw it as timely because I've seen throughout my time in industry and academia the increased adoption of many of these technology that we have been working with for quite a bit of time. And in my particular case, drones or unmanned aerial systems, I've seen since we started working with them almost 9-10 years ago, how it's become widely accepted and it's being adopted even more nowadays. So we thought that these technologies and their integration could benefit industry, and we decided that this book would be a great way to disseminate the framework, the associated technologies, and showcase what is possible and what positive impact the innovation in the built environment could be for everyone. And the concept for the book are even more relevant now in the situation that we're in with this global pandemic. Many of the Construction 4.0 technologies are allowing and will help to allow continued work in the construction industry in this new normal that we're all in now.
Have you seen any examples then, given the current situation of companies, that you could class as kind of already applying the Construction 4.0 framework, and how successful were they given the restrictions and remote working conditions?
Well, some examples I'm aware of local companies in my community here in the Metro Atlanta area. It would include the capabilities of telework. So video conferencing applications have been around for a while, but they're now being even more leveraged to allow folks to continue to collaborate remotely. But not only that, the use of other technologies like virtual reality are allowing teams to collaborate in virtual environments when they're trying to define pre-construction plans. And something that I'm a little bit more familiar with and that I've used a little more is drones. So drones have been used to monitor progress on projects, but now that's even more relevant with companies trying to avoid sending too many people to job sites, trying to keep social distancing guidelines in place, so they can do remote inspections of facilities and collect data. And more companies that were not using this before are using it now as they see increased value in protecting health and safety of their workers.
And actually, you extensively discuss in that book on Construction 4.0 the use of drones or UAVs. So can you explain a little bit more about how specifically UAVs fit into that Construction 4.0 ecosystem?
Yeah, so drones, I think they're very important part of Construction 4.0 framework. This is a technology that continues to evolve. It seems like every other day I see announcements from companies that are coming up with improved models that leverages some of the technologies that the Construction 4.0 is based on or include, like artificial intelligence, computer vision, and other sensing capabilities that allow these drones to be smarter and safer to operate. But I see the main or one of the most important capabilities of this technology is the capability to collect data, because Construction 4.0 framework, one of its goals is to be able to collect this data and make it available for others in the ecosystem, and then be able to process and take action on the data that is collected. So with having BIM at the center of the framework, the data that a drone can collect, which would include visual data, point cloud, and other data collected by different sensors, can all be shown or integrated into BIM models that could be the way that team members and even the general public could access and communicate with. So I guess that's my view on how this technology can help and be an important part of the framework. And I also see the next evolution of these unmanned aerial vehicles for the built environment would be coming in the logistics and transportation needs on job sites. We're looking now into how these drones can be used as devices to transport objects. So these applications continue to evolve, and we expect that the new applications will continue or contribute to the Construction 4.0 framework.
So are they kind of morphing into potentially machinery used on site or something akin to that? Is that what you're saying?
Yes. So what we're looking at is to we're actually developing a few prototypes of drones that can perform transportation of small items, small tools, small loads, and that they can be configured to even carry greater loads by being a modular system. So instead of needing a machine like a forklift or something like that to roll around and transport something on a job site where you would need a surface to roll, these unmanned vehicles could be used like an aerial conveyor belt, if you will, to move things around the job site where access is limited and try to expedite how materials get to the frontline workers that need them, and on demand almost mode. So that's what we're looking at right now.
And with these unmanned vehicles, we know that the trend is shifting in mobility in general into fully autonomous vehicles. Are you seeing the same pattern emerge with UAVs? Do you foresee that they will be fully autonomous?
That is always a question that we see, and there are other factors that would affect autonomy or full autonomy of these small versions of unmanned aerial vehicles that we're looking at for the construction applications and that we've been using for construction. So the construction environment, of course, it's kind of like private areas where the rules of airspace still apply, but there's more control from, for example, contractors and owners of a job site of what goes on in that job site, and that allows operations to be more easily planned. If you're talking about general airspace and outside of the confines of a job site, then it's harder to control what goes below where the drone is flying. So full autonomy is not there yet. There are instances where full autonomy or almost full autonomy is viable in job sites. For example, in inspections that are pre-programmed based on routes that are defined by BIM models, for example. So that could be more automated. And then the collection of aerial images for photogrammetric processing, there's a lot of applications or software that can be used to automate that process. So automation is coming, but of course it will be somewhat dependent on what the regulations stipulate, and even more that the regulations are different from place to place. So that's what I've been seeing in terms of automation.
And you mentioned there BIM as well. So where does BIM fit into that Construction 4.0 ecosystem? And is it also due to change in its benefits and use as a result?
BIM is at the center of the framework, and that is no coincidence. The the idea of construction 4.0 also stems from the digitization of the built environment assets, and that includes from buildings to infrastructure. So BIM is a repository, or can be seen as a repository for a lot of the data that is collected, created by sensors or collected by sensors, and even created in the conception of a facility that is designed. So it is very important, and the benefits of using BIM for built environment applications will only grow with time as these technologies are developed, evolved, and integrated into the framework, because not all of them are widely adopted or widely used, but as they do become adopted and used, they will be able to contribute more information to these building information models.
And from all of your research done to date with UAVs, what is the kind of consensus that you're seeing in the industry? Are they willing to adopt some of the technologies that you mentioned under Construction 4.0, namely UAVs, but others as well?
Yes, so that's a great question, because it's something that we always have to consider when we're working on research that deals with any of the technologies that could be associated with the Construction 4 framework. In the case of UAVs, and in the case of many of these technologies, the industry partners always ask the question about return on investment. So what is going to be the ROI that we'll achieve by using this particular technology? And sometimes the answer is clear, sometimes it's not. With drones or UAVs, this answer is becoming clearer. Companies are being able to achieve returns of investments that make the alternative of using an unmanned system for certain tasks more beneficial than doing it the way they have been doing it. So I would say that the adoption is growing, and industry partners are increasingly willing to use some of this technology. Another example is the use of laser scanning technology for reality capture. So a few years ago, laser scanners were prohibitively expensive, and there still are a significant investment for a company. But companies have been able to use or test and document the savings that they achieve by using this technology to capture progress and as-built conditions for structures that then they can integrate also with BIM. So it takes some time for some of these technologies to be tested and their return on investment assessed, so they then become easier to adopt. But I think that curve of adoption is speeding up. Companies are realizing that these technologies are beneficial, and some of them are going to be even more beneficial when we are working in this new normal.
You mentioned time there. So how do you see specifically that whole ecosystem changing in the future, and what do you foresee might be the time span for Construction 4.0 technology diffusion for it to become no longer the kind of minority and all of a sudden becoming kind of akin to what we were used to with BIM and AutoCAD?
In terms of the time frame, it's a little hard to estimate what that could be, especially in the situation we're right now. I think adoption in the construction industry has been notoriously slow, but given the unprecedented situation that we're now find ourselves in, that time for adoption will definitely be shorter than what I could have even imagined a few months ago. So I think that with all the technology tools that we have that allow us to share information and disseminate information, I think the adoption will definitely accelerate. And since some of these construction 4.0 concepts and tools and technologies are being embedded in construction curriculum around the world, I think that will help drive the increased adoption or faster adoption of these technologies. For example, a course that we teach at Georgia Tech that uses drones is something that we're seeing that is allowing students to go work for companies, and from day one they can provide that skill to a company that has never even considered using an unmanned system on their job site. So students finish the course, and many of them go and take the Federal Aviation Administration's Part 107 certificate exam, and they basically graduate with a drones pilot's license that they can go and apply at their construction site. So adoption is not only coming from within the industry, from established participants, but also from those that are coming in. So part of our goal with this book is to provide a tool that educators can use to basically educate and train construction 4.0 ready graduates.
And you must have seen in your own research work as well that in order for these technologies to be taken seriously at the board level, leaders have to make some difficult decisions. So what have you seen that they have maybe perhaps most often overlooked with their own digital transformation?
I think sometimes industry partners, for many reasons, have to consider the risk involved in an investment in technology, or not only an investment in the technology, but also the application of that technology. I remember a few years ago when drones started to become more used, and I remember the resistance that was coming from the top of many organizations because of the aversion to risk, and it turned out to be financial risk, but it was liability that was seen as associated with the use of unmanned systems. Privacy was almost always the first one, and also safety. Unmanned systems were not broadly understood. Their safety features were not relatively apparent to industry partners. So there was a reluctance to introduce a device that would be hovering around a job site and would be a potential hazard of a dropping object. So that was something that I saw related to drones that drove reluctance to adoption.
And I'm sure that you have seen technology come and go throughout the construction industry, but in terms of making a change and making an impact in the construction sector, you've said that it started to speed up. Now, for researchers within our field, what advice might you give to them when trying to make an impact into the construction industry?
Well, in my experience, trying to solve problems that exist today in the industry and seeking to know what those are from practitioners, I think it's a way to try to address that and to make an impact. Sometimes I come across research that it's critically important in contributing to the body of knowledge and to develop and push technology forward. But if you lose sight of the contribution to the body of practice, I think that is an issue that we as researchers always have to keep in mind, because we should always strive to develop solutions that could benefit the industry in the short term. And I'm not talking about just focusing on short-term solutions and not be forward-looking, but from the industry's perspective, something that helps them to solve an issue today is encouragement for the industry to support research that can solve a problem tomorrow. So if we continue to collaborate with industry partners and show them that there is value in research that can help solve a today problem, but contributing to the solution of a tomorrow problem, I think that would be mutually beneficial. And that's what I always try to do when I'm thinking of research that we want to engage in, things that I know will push the technology forward, like the example of load-carrying vehicles, which contribute to the aerodynamics of drones, how you can make a drone carry unstable loads, autonomous navigation in the complex environment of a construction site. So those are today problems, but we see them more as tomorrow problems. But the today problem is to try to get loads from point A to B in the fastest, most efficient and safer way. So that's what I would tell to researchers to strive to do that.
And what type of work are you working on right now in terms of research, and where could our listeners find out more about your future work?
So right now, we're focusing on integrating these construction 4.0 technologies with current research that we're working on with unmanned systems. So trying to provide solutions for material mobility on job sites, and trying to perform remote inspections, but trying to leverage sensor data and then post-processing that data with artificial intelligence related technology. That's some of the things that we're working on right now. And the best place to learn about those as we engage in this research and disseminate, in addition to the traditional dissemination sources, like journals and conference and all that. We have our website, the CONECTech Lab at Georgia Tech, where folks can learn more. And yeah, so that's some of the best places. And of course, if folks want to learn more about construction 4.0 and how it could provide benefits to the industry, and how these technologies could be used to educate the next generation of construction industry professionals, then they should check out the Construction 4.0 book as well.
Thank you for tuning in to listen to Beyond BIM podcast. If you enjoyed this episode and want to hear more from our latest episodes, then you can visit Beyond BIM, which is available on SoundCloud and iTunes and all the other major podcast providers.